Hi, I'm David Hoffman, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate. We're down here in Alton today. It's nice to get back down here because my wife's from here. Grew up over on 15th Street and went to Elijah J. Lovejoy School. So we spent a lot of time when we were dating, and after that we were married coming down here. So I care about Alton and Madison County and St. Clair County issues, something that near and dear to my family's heart. And they'll be an important part of my campaign, whether it's issues about the levies that FEMA is trying to decertify, to other issues that are on the minds of people here, ranging from health care to the economy. Our family is very connected to this part of the world. My wife's grandfather, Jim McAllister, was a proud member of the 12th Street Presbyterian Church. We spent time there and at his house here in Alton, and then later when they moved to Godfrey. So hello to everyone from here. We've been listening to people down here, meeting a lot of folks, and I'm looking forward to going to another meeting right now and listening to what people have on their minds. And I'll be back here again. My name's David Hoffman, just hoffmanforillinois.com. Hope you check out our website. Thanks. So earlier this year, after Governor Blagojevich was arrested, Pat Quinn appointed me and 13 others to something called the Illinois Reform Commission. And the point of that was to travel around the state. We had town hall meetings, we had substantive hearings on some topics, and then make recommendations about how we could clean up the corruption and ethics problems that we've had in the state. And you know, with 2 straight governors being arrested and all sorts of other scandals, there's a real need for that. So in April, we came out with a long report on 6 different topics that was very specific about the kind of recommendations that in our view needed to be changed, things that needed to be changed in the law and in the culture in order to clean up state government and make it much more difficult for people to engage in pay to play. And we were more successful on the play side than on the pay side in terms of results. And what I mean by that is this. Pay to play in Illinois typically means the pay side is giving of campaign contributions. There are no limits at all on campaign contributions that people can give in the state. We're one of only 4 states that has no limits. So the usual deal is contractors or other big contributors who want something will give very big contributions, and then they'll want something in return, and that's the play side. And usually, not always, the play side is handing out contracts. That's the most common way that they get something in return. And through the contracting process, through abuse of that process and manipulation, a contract would be handed out. Maybe it would be through a no-bid situation. Maybe it would be through a situation where people were competing, but it was all very subjective, and then the finger would be put on the scale in order to hand it to this contractor who was the favored one. So the answer to your question is that the results were mixed. I worked closely, and so in May, we were down in Springfield a lot, testifying. I was drafting legislation with folks in the Senate in particular. I worked closely with Senator Jeff Schoenberg on legislation to change the way the state hands out contracts. And probably a conservative estimate is that given the cases that the U.S. Attorney's Office made and other scandals that have come out, probably a conservative estimate is maybe 10% of the contracts were going into corrupt or wasteful situations. And that's $1 billion. I mean, it's just a huge amount of our tax dollars that is going for wrong things. When we were studying this issue, and you know, this is not just here at home in Illinois, this is getting us national attention in a way that we don't want. There was a conference of the American Bar Association in Maryland relating to contract law, and it was a big companies from around the country. Mm-hmm. And they gathered there, and it was in March, so it was a couple months after Blagojevich had been charged. And they started talking about contracting around the country, and Illinois came up. And this guy who was there said, all of a sudden laughter broke out in the room when Illinois came up. And then there was this discussion, and a whole bunch of the big companies said, we won't compete for contracts in the state of Illinois because, you know, it's just not worth getting into the problems of corruption and other things. It's just too expensive for us as a business, so we don't even bid. And when we're losing bids from companies, we're losing competition, and that means the price that we pay go up. It's just, look, this has gone on way too long. And you know, my family's been in Illinois for 4 generations. I just think there's been too much tolerance of these kind of things. You sometimes hear, well, that's just the way it is. It's been going on.
How does Illinois change that stigma now?
Well, I think part of that is about who we put in office. I really do. I mean, how we change that stigma, and part of that stigma relates to, you know, I'll segue right into this Senate race. Part of that stigma relates to this race. I mean, this was Barack Obama's seat. And then he becomes our president, and 1 month later, these wiretap calls come out when Blagojevich gets arrested, and it turns out that he had been trying to sell this very Senate seat. Mm-hmm. This was the seat that he called bleepin' golden, not because he thought it was, had such reverence for it, but the opposite, because he saw it as very valuable for his own personal purposes. And so, the eyes of the nation are really upon us with regard to what we're going to do with this election. We're a pretty blue state in terms of being pretty democratic, but so the National Journal is one of the top political journals in Washington, and they did a survey of all the Senate seats that were up for re-election or up for election that were held by Democrats. And they ranked this seat as the number 2 most at risk for Democrats. And they said because the Republicans are probably going to have a pretty good nominee in Mark Kirk, and given the Blagojevich and corruption scandals here, unless the Democrats can nominate a true outsider, they believe that this seat is going to be lost to Republicans, and they named me as the sole outsider. I think we've got, look at all of these races, I think that if voters consistently are prioritizing people who have been on the right side of these clean government issues, who haven't been cozy with the people who've been involved in insider politics and all these problems, then the message is going to get out in a pretty loud and clear way that if you want to make sure you get elected or re-elected in the future, you've got to make sure you're strong on ethics and integrity issues and not just getting in bed with the people who are on the wrong side of this. And, I've never met Rod Blagojevich. I've never met Tony Rezko. I've never met any of these people that the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office had to spend way too much time digging out the evidence to tell people what the truth was.
I always joke, about the state of Chicago and the state of Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And I know you put the message forward to these people that are here and passing the word forward, but they have to also see you too. So the message of via internet and however you're going to do your platform, they have to see you as well, because it is a joke, the state of Chicago and the state of Illinois, because that's what people see Illinoisans as everybody's from Chicago. I don't live in Chicago, so it is. And so, we appreciate the time that you've spent down in anything south of I-80 being south.
Well, I've been saying, I'm the only, well, everyone in this race is from Chicago or the Chicago area. I'm the only one who has a spouse who's from outside the Chicago area, and my wife, she's my most important advisor, and she will never let me forget.
Oh, we appreciate her.
Yeah, that's right.
We appreciate her already.
Well, and she always reminds me when it's sports season, whatever the sports. I mean, she's a big St. Louis Cardinals fan, and so
Tell her she's got her vote already.
Yeah, good.
We don't know about you.
That's right, exactly. That's right. That's how she feels.